It's morphin time! Stegosaurus! Tyrannosaurus!
I don't know what it is about anime callback decks that keep grabbing my attention, but at least it's not because of the anime this time. See, back in the day, all the way back on the PS2, there was a niche little game called Yu-Gi-Oh! Capsule Monster Coliseum, and it is probably the best hidden gem on the system to this day. Not including, of course, Neopets the Darkest Fairy.
The preceding message was brought to you by me, the biggest and only simp for what is essentially bootleg Zelda.
At one point, while playing, I had on the game board a high-leveled steel scorpion that I was using since the start of that particular playthrough, placed next to a Zoa that I snagged off of Merrick. Why he wasn't with Bandit Keith has puzzled archaeologists to this very day. When selecting one of the pieces in an attempt to move it, I was inexplicably given an option in the action menu I had never seen before. Fusion. Completely taken aback by this option that the game never mentioned could happen, I eagerly selected it and found a brand new monster to my name, Metal Zoa. Being a fan of cool-looking robots, my reaction to seeing this thing for the first time left me with an unimaginable amount of excitement and an immeasurable amount of expectations. In the game, he was admittedly pretty strong, but the awkward combination of his movement and attack patterns made it tricky to get the most out of him. This made it all the more depressing when I learned how he worked in the actual card game. Instead of a card that was hard to get out but strong when in play, the real Metal Zoa had no practical purpose to being summoned outside of bragging rights. Still, the admiration I felt for its design is something I still feel to this day. It's even felt for Steel Scorpion as well, which is why I gave so much emphasis to it in my Earth Machine video. Now, after almost 20 years, Rage of the Abyss released the first new Metal Zoa card since the original, not including its likeness on other cards. Like, I love this artwork, but did you have to make it suck so much dick? Huh? Oh yeah, and there was a whole deck to go with it, I guess. Who cares? Me, I guess. Biases aside, the new Metalmorph cards are the latest installment in the "Please don't leave the game, look at these old cards, you remember them? Yeah, you do" initiative Konami keeps forcing on the player base. However, unlike the Shining Sarcophagus, these cards have seen actual competitive use. This reimagined playstyle not only respects the origin of how those cards were first intended to be played, but also holds a large significance as being a conjoined deck between the cards used by Joey and Bandit Keith during their duel against each other in Duelist Kingdom. Glad to see they worked out their differences, I guess. With a strong focus on control, high attack values, and a nice smidgen of burn for good measure, Max Metalmorph has certainly earned its reputation for summoning full metal and nothing more. Yeah, as fun as the deck can be, it mostly sees play as an engine to easily throw out an Omni with a fat body and decent protection. Does that make the other cards not worth acknowledging? Well, let's take a look and see how thick this metal plating can get. Before talking about the retrains, I think it would be most appropriate to talk about the originals that inspired them, both as a means to see what influenced how the deck works and, well, they are Metalmorph cards, to be fair, and would thus allow me to cover all of my bases. This leads us to start with, of course, the original hate crime that is simply Metalmorph. It's a normal trap that says, target one face-up monster on the field, equip this card to that target. It gains 300 attack and defense. If it attacks, it gains attack equal to half the attack of the attack target, during damage calculation only. Having been released in the original first wave of cards, all the way back in 1999, Metalmorph made a name for itself by being an, at the time, overpowered stat-buffing behemoth of a trap card. Simply using this on any monster with a decent amount of attack guaranteed it to run over pretty much anything. The drawback of having to wait a turn to get the full use out of it was a bit of a heavy trade-off, but the game's, at the time, slower pace definitely helped give it some wiggle room. I'm not too familiar with what the meta was like back then, other than maybe Summon Scold Beatdown, but I can imagine how hyped this must have been at the time. Nowadays, no one needs to rely on battles to determine how a game will resolve. We used to be a nation! But the legacy this card left behind has never really left. Not worth running anymore, but a classic card through and through. However, if for some reason you want to summon a stupid beatstick from the deck with none of the fun the trap provided, then allow me to introduce some of the worst cards in the game! Red Eye's Black Metal Dragon and Metal Zoa. They share a similar effect. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned from your deck by tributing their associated monster equipped with Metalmorph. Red Eye's Black Dragon for Metal Dragon, and Zoa for Metal Zoa. Yes, you heard that right! By tributing a very specific monster equipped with a very specific trap card, which you have to wait a turn to activate, you can summon from the deck, and only from the deck, a monster that, for the trade away to guarantee beat over anything it attacks, have 100 more attack and defense during the opponent's turn or when attacking directly. I don't think this needs an explanation for why it's bad, but I'm a petty bitch and I love to overanalyze, so let me break it down. This strategy requires summoning level 7 vanillas whose stats would be okay for a level 6, although Zoa would be pushing it, most likely needing 2 tribute materials to get them on the field in the first place, and having access to a trap card that can probably win you the game on its own, making it a latent win more plan. You know, despite putting you at a disadvantage. And that's just the setup! Demanding these cards be in the deck at all times makes them the absolute worst garnets this game has probably ever seen. I don't know why it couldn't be hand or deck, but I guess that would be too strong. Okay. If this shit was made now, it would be one of those gimmicky fusion cards like Tyrant Dragon. Well, as they are, they stand as a baseline for how the future cards would be designed, even to the point of influencing a lot of Red Eye's support. It sucks to have to come to terms with how truly ass the OG Metal Zoa is, but at the very least, these new cards give it a second chance to shine. Like Metal. Before that, though, there's still one more card to look over. 5 years after the original, we would receive the first Metalmorph retrain, Rare Metalmorph. This time, it's a continuous trap that says, activate this card by targeting one machine-type monster on the field. It gains 500 attack. Once, negate a spell effect that targets that monster. When that monster leaves the field, destroy this card. It's an interesting reinterpretation of the card. Not as monkey-brained Unga Bunga as the original, but more in line with how it worked in the anime and, presumably I didn't read it, manga, giving a monster spell immunity by making it a machine. Well, it can only do it once, is limited to targeting, and has to be an effect and not a card. I actually fucking hate that there is a legitimate difference between the two. But hey! Now Red Eyes and Zoa can have 200 extra attack on the opponent's turn or attacking directly! Power creep has gone too far! Oh wait. You can't, because they have to already be a machine. Yeah, this card's bad. The only noteworthy thing about it is how the preceding depictions of Metalmorph would use this card's artwork as the inspiration. I mean, it's nice and all, but do they always need to be deflecting these vague pink lasers? Feels a bit random to pick this card over the original for influence. What happened to displaying your armor on a stand like in the good old days?
Diamond armor, full set.
Get this dynamic pose bullshit out of here! Finally, with that history lesson out of the way, we can actually talk about the cards you probably came to hear me talk about. The centerpiece for the new support goes by the name of Max Metalmorph. Tribute one face-up monster, special summon one monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, and mentions Max Metalmorph from your hand, deck, or graveyard. Then, you can equip this card to it with the following effect. The equipped monster gains 400 attack and defense. It cannot be destroyed by spell or monster effects. Also, your opponent cannot target it with monster effects or spell cards or effects. You can only activate one Max Metalmorph per turn. Being the heart and soul of the deck, it's got a lot going on that makes whatever it summons a formidable threat. First of all, thank God it doesn't have to be exclusively from the deck. 9 times out of 10 it will be, but the lack of restriction is a nice courtesy. I'll get more into how the summoning works when we talk about the monsters, so stay put! The benefits it gives is a nice mix of the OG printing of Metalmorph and the originally intended effect, i.e. Rare Metalmorph, giving you an attack boost that's between the two and a much more powerful protection effect. Instead of a specific one-time negate, it just grants permanent protection against most forms of targeting and destruction. Why it can still be destroyed by spell cards specifically is beyond my comprehension. Ironically enough, this trap-heavy deck doesn't do well against other trap-focused decks, or Imperm, so watch your back. The funniest thing about that attack boost is that it can finally be used on the metal forms of these monsters, making those attack stats actually be a bit of a big deal. Definitely the best this card could get. No complaints. Aside from my actual complaining, but don't worry about that too much. Of course, it's only as good as the monsters you can summon with it. In that, we have Red Eyes Black Full Metal Dragon, Metal Zoa X, and Metal Flame Swordsman? Where the fuck did that guy come from? Yeah, well, they all share the following effect. Cannot be normal summoned or set. Must first be special summoned with Max Metalmorph that was activated by attributing a level 5 or higher monster with an associated type. Dragon type for Red Eyes, Fiend for Zoa, and Warrior for Swordsman. In the case of Red Eyes and Zoa, they can reveal themselves in the hand to set one Metalmorph trap from the deck, and if they do, shuffle the respective card into the deck, hard once per turn each. As for Swordsman, he can reveal himself in the hand to add one card that mentions Max Metalmorph from your deck to your hand, except Metal Flame Swordsman. And if he does, shuffles himself into the deck, also hard once per turn. Right off the bat, you already see them addressing the peak issue with these original cards. Now, instead of bricking whenever drawing them, they can act as actual combo starters. This leaves the deck, or engine if you're a poser, with a ridiculous amount of consistency, as you'll be able to get yourself set up regardless with which cards you have available to you, as all the other cards, we'll talk about later on, also assist with setup too. Making the Garnets actual consistency boosters alongside their intimidating figure was the best way to go about incorporating them into the deck's playstyle without it having to feel annoyingly clunky. On top of that, the actual summoning conditions of these monsters lead to a good amount of versatility when incorporating them into other decks. Even using a full package of every card available to you in the archetype can leave you with enough room to mix it with another deck. So there's a lot of easy experimentation to go around with multiple Dragon, Fiend, and Warrior decks that can take advantage of these cards. There are other ways to cheat them out without relying on the types of cards from another deck, so the cards are especially flexible in pretty much anything that can afford to run it. Sporting huge attack values across the board, along with some very nasty effects, they demand a lot of respect once they reach the board. Speaking of those effects, it's time we look at them individually and see what makes them stand out from each other. Starting off with Red Eyes, his unique effect says, as a hard once per turn, when your opponent activates a card or effect, quick effect, you can negate the activation, then you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to the original attack of one attack position monster your opponent controls. Straight to the point, once Full Metal hits the field, he's as threatening as a Regulus that doesn't leave, burns, and has significantly more attack. Unless you grabbed another Regulus. Ooh, didn't see that coming. Standing at a whopping 3,400, it must be very confusing for many seeing this card for the first time and wondering why. After all, the original Metal Dragon was only 2,800, so what gives? Well, if you were to look closely, you'll notice that he's outfitted with the Dragon Nails Equip spell, a card used by Rex against Joey. I know it's just blatant fan service, but yeah, I don't even think it showed up in his duel against Bandit Keith. Regardless, having metal claws on a metal body does look really cool, and that's all I can ask for at this point. But yeah, that's why he has the bloated attack points, because Dragon Nails gives 600 attack. Giant body aside, acting as an Omni that also helps you win in time, Full Metal Dragon cemented itself as one of the strongest cards to have come out in some of the more recent sets. I mean, what does it have to compete with? Evil heroes? Battle wasps? Okay, fair. Able to be made with any high-leveled dragon means it'll always find room in any strong dragon decks, which Yu-Gi-Oh! Is in no short supply of. As an aside, can I just express how grateful I am that it doesn't require a level 7 or higher monster? As tempting as that might have been for the nostalgia designers. Not needing a specific monster, but instead any of their associated non-machine types was also nice to have. Anyway, back to Red Eyes. Its easy splashability in anything with disposable dragons made it a competitively viable tech option, most notably in the classic Dragon Link deck type. It's gotten to the point where I wonder what it will take for a dragon deck to not want to run it. Being the obvious best monster in the deck, make sure to prioritize this one as much as possible. As for Metal Zoa X, his unique effect is, twice per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, or spell card or effect, quick effect, you could target one face-up monster your opponent controls, destroy it. I like how this effect is a soft twice per turn, meaning you could get 4 pops with 2 on the field. Not practical, but very funny. Regardless, look at him! Look how competent and not shit he is! Like, okay, on its own, it isn't anything amazing and can be detrimental against the wrong deck, but paired with Full Metal and other strong Edinboard staples depending on what you're running, Zoa stands strong as a great secondary option to go into with the Metalmorphs. Yes, plural, I'll talk about the other one later, as an additional form of field control, forcing your opponent to heavily consider what to use while risking what they've already set up with. It became especially easy to make with everyone and their mother running a Fiendsmith engine these days. It is a bit restrictive, only popping monsters and not proccing from traps or, once again, monster cards, if that's a thing, but still a great option to go into with an already otherwise established field. And for a Metal Zoa retrain, I'm not in a position to be too picky about the semantics. Even then, I pretty much got what I wanted, a strong but tricky to use monster. It even has this whole X motif about it, just like its movement pattern in Capsule Monster. I know that's just a coincidence, but it's really fucking cool that I can tie this back to my own personal nostalgia, irrespective of the intended fan service. It gives me great joy to say that it is worth at least considering to run in any deck using Max Metalmorph as an engine. Couldn't be happier. Now, if only Steel Scorpion can get the same treatment. For real, I wouldn't be surprised at this point. For the final boss monster, we have, of all things, Metal Flame Swordsman, a what-if type of card where Flame Swordsman gets Metalmorph put on him, which I have to call cap on because if they wanted to be true to form, while it is 1 level higher, it should have 400 more attack and defense, but instead has 700 more attack and no defense increase. I don't care if it's a Salamandra reference, I'll see you in court, Konami! Much like the others, it's a machine, only it's fire attribute instead of dark. I guess Metalmorph only affects types, which makes sense. Its on-field effect is, each time your opponent activates a card or effect, this card gains 300 attack and inflicts 500 damage to your opponent when that card or effect resolves. Leave it to the anime deck to emphasize inflicting effect damage. This isn't even the last one to do so. It's not even the first time a card in a Red Eyes deck had an effect like this. Pulling a Flare Metal with attack boosting sounds like it could be the most annoying thing to ever have to deal with. But when the bar for Metalmorphing is a fucking Omni-Negate, it doesn't seem as impressive in comparison. All things considered, it's not a bad effect, but it's more so meant to be put on the field when you fail to OTK but still left them limping. So it's not a horrible option if you'd rather that over the popping from Zoa. It also gives the deck slightly more consistency, as well as compatibility with warrior decks. So it's really only worth using if you feel you have room for it, or if you have enough synergy with whatever you're mashing it up with. What I really hope for is that this opens the door for us to get a Metal Barrel Dragon or something else from Bandit Keith's deck. You can't just give me these hypothetical cards and not expect me to want more fanfiction to become real. Give me the Metal Scorpion! As for the last Metalmorph trap, worth addressing before the other cards, we have Flame Coating Metalmorph. This card, that was made to justify keeping a pure version of the deck playable with Metal Flame Swordsman in it, says, tribute 1 face-up monster that mentions Max Metalmorph, special summon 1 monster that cannot be normal summoned or set, and mentions Max Metalmorph from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Then you can equip this card to it with the following effect. If the equipped monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, you can send this card to the graveyard instead. You can only activate 1 Flame Coating Metalmorph per turn. It's basically an alternative version of Max. Instead of requiring a specific type of any monster in relation to the guy you choose to summon with, it specifically has to be a monster in the Metalmorph series. While this limits the targets you can use, you aren't stuck with using the Fiend monster to go into Metal Zoa, for example. Although going from Zoa to Full Metal feels like the most cursed type of transmutation spell you could pull off with this deck. Another fun tech is swapping out one boss monster for another when their effects are used up, or as a means to dodge targeting. So there's a lot of fun interactions to potentially experiment with. The trade-away for this flexibility is a less impressive protection effect, falling in line with rare Metalmorph, funny enough. It gives a one-time save from destruction and no stat boosts. It's fine. The attack values are high across the board, and that extra 400 isn't gonna make too much of a difference. So a small bit of destruction protection for a less restrictive summon is tolerable, but that only means it's not seen play outside of dedicated decks that use it for more than an engine. It's a nice option to have, at least. Now that the context for this deck has been taken care of, let's look at the monsters that help facilitate getting those fellas out and about. First up is Metal Illusionist, this deck's retrain of Copycat.
Get it? It's a thing Joey used.
I know what that is!
Increase this card's level by 4 during your opponent's turn only. You can only use each of the following effects of Metal Illusionist once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can set one Metalmorph trap from your deck. Then, if Max Metalmorph is in your graveyard, you can draw one card. You can declare one other monster type. This card becomes that type until the end of your opponent's turn. Just from this one card, it should be fairly obvious how easy it can be to cheat out the other guys. Turning into a level 5 monster on the opponent's turn, the ability to turn into any type so it can go into whatever you need, and it sets up a Metalmorph trap for said turn. So it wasn't until editing that I realized two things. One, the reason he turns level 5 specifically is because he was level 5 in the show. I did not realize that. Whoopsies, nice reference there. But also, if you look at the artwork closely, you'll see Metalmorph in the reflection of its mirror, which is really cool, but also a reference to how it was the card that copied Metalmorph so that Joey could use it on Red Eyes. That's nice and all, but it could use some more lasers. The courtesy draw is nice and all, but it's most likely not gonna go off. Really, it's only there so the card mentions Max Metalmorph, making it searchable and usable with flame coating in case it gets negated for some reason. It's a nice and basic bonus at least, so realistically it's for the long game. The absolute best starter this deck has access to. In the TCG. More on that in a sec. The dedicated Fiend monster for the deck, as you can imagine, is Naked Metal Zoa, or Zoa the Fiendish Beast. Okay, buddy, you're either a fiend or a beast. Pick a lane. His effect is, if your opponent controls a monster, you can normal summon this card without tributing. You can only use each of the following effects of Zoa the Fiendish Beast once per turn. If this card is in your hand, you can special summon this card in defense position. Then, if Max Metalmorph is not in your graveyard, your your opponent can special summon one monster from their hand. During your main phase, you can set one Metalmorph trap from your deck. Huh? Like, I understand needing a cost for the special summon, but did it have to allow the opponent to summon any monster from their hand? Like, are you fucking insane? Again, it's an excuse to mention Max Metalmorph, but why does this deck think it's gonna be in the grave so often? What am I playing, Jinzo? I guess it could be a tech to normal summon a second copy in hand. You know, think of the Link or Rank 7 plays. Look, I don't care if the normal summon effect is another patented Duelist Kingdom moment, or that the giving your opponent a freebie effect could be a callback to Keith purposefully giving Joey information about his cards to take advantage of, quote unquote, because all this ends up doing is making Zoa a shot in the foot! Being another card that sets Metalmorph traps that can reach the field makes it not complete garbage. But don't rely on it until you already have some setup if you can help it. Thank God I don't care for this form of Zoa as much. Otherwise, I would have felt monkey's pawed. In comparison, it looks especially bad when next to Red Eye's Metal Claws Dragon, a card that is only currently available in the OCG and Master Duel at the time of writing. But I'm counting the days it comes to TCG because that first line of text alone is fucking busted! Look, I know it's out by the time this video comes out. Just shut up and roll with it. You can activate Metalmorph trap cards the turn they are set. Thank fucking God. You can only use each of the following effects of Red Eye's Metal Claws Dragon once per turn. You can send one face-down card you control to the graveyard, special summon this card from your hand. If this card is normal or special summoned, and you have max Metalmorph in your field or graveyard, you can add one Metalmorph trap from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So, not only does this set up your plays before your opponent can react on their turn, it can help give you protection as you set up the rest of your plays, most notably against Nibiru. If the card you send to summon Metal Claws happens to be max, which can sometimes be stupid easy to achieve, it makes its own searching active and helps facilitate the effects of Zoa and Illusionist. Granted, it's the only card in the deck that can reliably do this, but it does it well, so I can't be that upset about it. Only a little. Once again, we see Red Eyes rocking the dragon nails, but I guess he wants people to think he's a Pokemon now. What I don't understand is why they didn't give him the 600 attack boost. If you're telling me because a 3000 attack starter is a bit ridiculous, maybe, but if it can't do anything on its own, and you're gonna go as far as to make Full Metal 3400, you might as well either commit to the bit or not have it at all. Whatever, I'll just pretend the opponent inexplicably has a Lacrima on the field whenever he shows up. Anyway, yeah, he's a busted card. Max out on that shit. The only spell in the deck is Incoming Machine. Yeah, Zoa, fuck him up! Add one monster that mentions Max Metalmorph, or one Metalmorph trap from your deck or graveyard to your hand. If you control a Metalmorph trap, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one defense position monster your opponent controls, change it to face-up attack position. You can only use this effect of Incoming Machine once per turn. Keep in mind, while the position-changing effect is once per turn, the search isn't, essentially making this a Rhoda that came out in Rhoda. Don't think about it too hard. There's never any reason to run less than 3, other than not wanting to commit, you fucking coward! Said position-changing effect can be useful sometimes, but it won't be relevant that often, if ever. But hey, it lets you get the burn effect off when negating with Full Metal. I mean, I guess, if you care enough. Not much else to say, it's just that simple, and also just that good. And the final card in the series is a goddamn Time Machine reference, which, of course, is not the first time Red Eyes has made a callback to it. Time Engine is always treated as a Metalmorph card, but it doesn't function like the other body-enhancing metal plating. If a monster you control is destroyed by battle or an opponent's card effect, you can target one of those monsters, special summon it, then, if you special summoned a level 5 or higher machine monster by this effect, and have a Metalmorph trap on your field or graveyard, except this card on the field, you can apply this effect. Destroy as many monsters your opponent controls as possible, then you can inflict damage to your opponent equal to that special summon monster's original attack. A free revive for your bosses. How Red Eyes of you. To be fair, it can revive any monster that got destroyed, but only gets the nuke and burn effect with a few specific stipulations. It's an okay option as a comeback card if all of your protection didn't go through for some reason. I am a fan of how it aesthetically uses Time Machine to bring back your monster and letting it go in for a revenge attack. Certainly the anime reference of all time. Not a terrible card, but another one that will only see play in dedicated pure builds. And that's every Metalmorph card, at least for now. Quite the mixed bag, all things considered. Redeeming some of the worst cards ever printed, this deck took some of the coolest designs the game has ever seen and gave them the modern-day touch-ups they deserve. While still clinging onto some awkward anime bullshit, it's nice to see a Red Eyes monster be used as an end-board piece instead of a combo enabler, and for Metal Zoa to become a competent card. If you're interested in playing the deck yourself, here's a pure build. Feel free to swap out the non-engine with whatever you want. I'm personally trying to mix it with the new Blue Eyes cards. As for my thoughts on the deck, I gotta say, color me impressed. I have my grievances, but as a whole, the Max Metalmorph playstyle has a lot of fun and strong interactions without feeling outright broken, finally giving the most wasted designs in the game the justice they deserve. I can't stress this enough. Being able to put a Metal Zoa card into a deck and expecting it to be good was not something I could ever have expected. But all the same, I could not be more grateful for it either. Now give me Metal Launcher Spider! I need this so fucking bad!